It's election day in Ohio. Today, Ohio voters are headed to the polls to vote in two hotly contested primaries in the 11th and 15th congressional districts. Today's primary in the 11th district will be a major test of President Biden's standing in the Democratic Party and its unity altogether. And the race in the 15th district will be an indicator of an important test of the standing of a Trump endorsement in Republican primaries now and in the future. We'll be talking about those stories and more today, August 3rd, 2021. From Anchor by Spotify, this is the Sean S. Show, a podcast about the interesting and ever-changing world of American politics from the perspective of a 15-year-old. With me, your host, Ishan. Welcome back to the Sean S. Show. Thank you for joining us today. Now, before I get on to today's episode, I just wanted to convey the news to anyone who doesn't already know yet that the Sean S. Show will be concluding its first season very soon. Here's the show's official statement on why and when we'll be leaving and when we'll be back. You can find this statement on my social medias and theSeanSShow.com. Producing the Sean S. Show has been an amazing and exciting learning experience for me to take on. I've enjoyed every moment of recording and editing episodes about all kinds of interesting topics in this truly amazing moment of history. Through this podcast, I've been able to talk about my passion, American politics, and provide my analysis to you on topics that I otherwise can't really talk about in normal conversations. This podcast has allowed me to do so much, and it's been a dream come true. However, it is with deep regret, but immense gratitude, that I'm announcing the conclusion of this season of the Sean S. Show. When I started this podcast, I did not really have any plans for a long-term podcast in mind, but the great reception for the show got me thinking about this show's future. And in that process, I realized all the significant effort that needs to be put into this show, which I know that all that effort is going to take some time. That's why I'm announcing the conclusion of this season, to prepare for the future of the show. Now, whenever the show does come back from its hiatus, I know that we will have a bigger audience, more topics to talk about, and so much more. I look forward to returning soon. Now, I would like to point out that the season finale will be on August 10th, next Tuesday. While the show is gone, I will continue to post breaking news updates on Instagram and Twitter, and the political news blog will continue to operate. But until August 10th, I look forward to talking about all kinds of topics in the news before wrapping up this season. I'm truly grateful for your support. I'm glad to see more people getting involved in politics and tuning into the show for information about political news. I've enjoyed every moment of producing the Sean S. Show, and I look forward to the last few episodes of this season. Now, that's the show's official statement. Producing this show has, like I said, been so much fun, truly, and I look forward to the next season. And I look forward to all the amazing things that are written in the show's future. Now, a quick reminder that the season finale will be next Tuesday. And I look forward to returning back to your podcast, wherever you're listening to this podcast from. I look forward to returning very soon after that. Now, with that out of the way, let's get into today's episode. So like you heard in the opening, Ohio voters in the 11th and 15th congressional districts are headed to the polls today to vote for their nominees in the general election later this fall. In the reliably Democratic 11th district, there's a heated Democratic primary between progressive candidate Nina Turner and moderate Shontel Brown. And in the reliably red 15th district, a heated 11-way Republican primary is going to be the first test of the all-important Trump endorsement and his standing in the Republican Party. As you might recall from last Friday's episode, I talked about how Trump-backed candidate Susan Wright lost her election in Texas to another Republican. So with that, we'll start with the 15th district's primary. So former Republican Congressman Steve Stivers resigned earlier this year in May to become president and CEO of the Ohio Chamber of Commerce. His resignation sparked an early Republican battle to replace him, with a full 11 candidates making it onto the ballot. Now, this is a reliably Republican district, so I don't need to make any predictions about the general election. However, this is the first major Republican, internal election since last week's Republican-to-Republican race in Texas. Like I just said, in that election, two major candidates were up after the runoff, Susan Wright and Jake Ellzey, both Republicans. Trump came out and endorsed Miss Wright before the election. And like I explained earlier, most people thought that purely off of this endorsement, Miss Wright would win and become the next representative for that district. However, to the surprise of many, Mr. Ellzey actually won the election, 53% to Wright's 47%. I said in last week's episode that although I don't think Trump's endorsement caused Miss Wright to lose, I do believe that Trump's endorsement did not go far enough. Now, here are the political implications of that. Not too long ago, if you were a Republican and Trump endorsed your opponent in a primary, then you'd be finished. You might as well pack up your campaign and move to a new state. Ask Lindsey Graham. Until 2016, Graham disliked Trump to every level that I can remember anyway. But as soon as Trump emerged as the strong force in the party, I think Graham realized that the endorsement would be quite necessary in his re-election prospects in a few years at the time. So he took a complete 180. In 2020, Lindsey Graham and other Republican senators, governors, and representatives won their primaries and won their elections via Trump's endorsement. Those who weren't endorsed, well, they didn't. So what happened in Texas? Why did Trump's endorsement not work the way we thought it would? Who knows? But what I can say is that many Trump inner circle people and advisors very quickly redirected their focus onto the Ohio 15 election in order to save face. At least that's what I'm assuming. They quietly invested about $300,000 into an ad campaign to support their preferred candidate, former lobbyist and coal industry consultant Mike Carey. Carey is in a heated primary with competition between him and 10 other candidates. In this election, I'm just going to assume that Trump's endorsement will go full way. I say that because while Trump's endorsement's value did fall just a little, it's still a fact that he holds a lot of ground in the party, and in a race with 10 other people, vote splitting is going to be the game at the party. And so with this, I feel like I can say that Carey can feel at least a little confident about tonight. However, if I'm wrong, then a whole lot of Republicans are going to have to very seriously consider the political star power of Donald Trump and ask themselves, is it going away? Because look, Bill Clinton's endorsement isn't that strong anymore. Al Gore's endorsement isn't that big. Chuck Schumer sure has weight in New York, but not many other places. It's a fact that the longer you're in office, the more unimportant you become. Now, Trump's not going to be unimportant for a long time. But instead of saying the hotly coveted Trump endorsement, I may just start saying the coveted Trump endorsement. These two elections are going to serve as case studies for Republicans in the near future, hint, the 2022 midterms. And these case studies are going to point at the shortcomings of Donald Trump in the Republican Party, which until last year was invisible. But since he's not nearly as visible through Twitter and he doesn't come on our screens as much as he did as president, the name of Trump may not go as far as it once did. If you're listening to this after 8 p.m. on Tuesday, when polls close, then type in Ohio 15th District to get the results on whether or not Carey won. All right, that was a quick analysis of the 15th District Ohio Republican primary. When we're back from the break, I'll talk about the heated Democratic primary in Ohio's 11th district, how that's shaping up for Democrats, how it shows President Biden's standing, and more. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. All right, so I'm back from our break. Now, in the beginning of this episode, I did talk about the Democratic primary in Ohio's 11th district. Here we have two Democrats, Nina Turner and Shontel Brown, running for the Democratic nomination to run in the special election to fill incumbent Secretary of Housing and Urban Development Marcia Fudge's old seat in Congress. Now, this seat is a guaranteed Democrat hold, and like the Ohio 15 race, I wouldn't think too much about the other side's candidates. So this primary is another one of those signature Democratic primaries of the modern political era. We have one complete progressive liberal, Nina Turner, and a moderate establishment-esque centrist, Shontel Brown, running for the Democratic Party's banner to represent the 11th district. Both of these women are running in this primary race with the eyes of Democrats across the country watching. Because since the 2020 presidential primaries, which concluded over a year ago, there haven't been a lot of hotly contested Democratic primaries that have gotten, not many that have gotten this much attention. And that's mainly because Democrats, for the most part, have coalesced around Joe Biden and his agenda. That's been the norm for a majority of this year. That was until this race really started to build up. Nina Turner is a former state senator from Ohio, and she was also a top campaign aide for Bernie Sanders' presidential campaigns, both in 2016, I believe, and in 2020 for sure. She's an outspoken critic of the Biden administration, but not for being too liberal, rather for not being liberal enough. You see, Ms. Turner believes in the typical progressive profile wish list, which are things like Medicare for all, the Green New Deal, huge infrastructure ambitions, that kind of thing. And she has the endorsements of big shot progressives like Bernie Sanders, of course, Senator Ed Markey, and the Squad, a group of liberal members of Congress consisting of Representatives Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Rashida Tlaib, Ayanna Pressley, Ilhan Omar, and Cori Bush. Now, in this primarily Democrat district, winning as a progressive won't be a big deal in the general. However, winning in the primary could be big news for this group's agenda. Now, Ms. Turner wasn't always the outspoken liberal progressive that she currently is. Instead, she was actually a bit more of a moderate and encouraged people like former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton to run for president. But then she had a major shift and joined the progressive side and was on Sanders' campaign actively going against Hillary Clinton, and has since then come out in fierce opposition to moderates and centrism in general. Now, those beliefs are very much the ones that are clashing with Shontel Brown's and are most certainly making this primary superheated and contentious. Ms. Brown is the chairwoman of the Cuyahoga County Democratic Party. Now, I'm sure I definitely botched the pronunciation of that county, so if you're listening from Cuyahoga County in Ohio, I'm sorry. Brown is your traditional, more establishment Democrat who does not go for big welfare-based spending policies that her opponents and progressive opponents might go for. Brown has the backing of some big-time Democrats, including Hillary Clinton, House Majority Whip Jim Clyburn, someone who was instrumental in relifting Joe Biden's then-failing campaign for the Democratic nomination and beating Bernie Sanders. And as NPR even put it, even Marcia Fudge's mother. So this primary battle is going to have huge implications for party politics, depending on who wins, like it is with the 15th district's election. For the Democrats here, I think rather than predicting the current standing of Joe Biden, which I know it's a big judgment of Joe Biden's presidency because with these types of primary races where it's a guaranteed Democratic win in the general. You know that the majority of the population voting are Democrats. So when we have this major test of progressive versus liberal, it can serve as a pretty decent indicator of how well the president may be doing in this pocket and maybe pockets across the country. I think it could be a trailer, in addition to that, for what the 2022 midterms have in store. Because the fact of the matter is that Democrats do not see each other eye to eye on crucial policy matters. Moderates like Joe Manchin cannot say that they remotely agree with progressives like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on key issues. Now, in my view, Joe Biden is center-left. He's a center-left Democrat, meaning that he more aligns with the center of the Democratic Party than the full-on left or the centrists. So with that said, I would say that this primary is going to be a test, like I said, of Biden's standing in the party, but it's also, more importantly, going to be a test of the Democratic Party's key values going into the midterms. Whoever wins this primary tonight, their faction is going to have at least bragging rights over policy control in the party, and they will emerge as key players in Democratic politics because, look, establishment Democrats have lost their standing and progressives have made some gains. So this election could be the first indicator of the Biden presidency's the Biden administration's, not administration, but like as a politician, Biden's handling of his party's internal divides. For 2022, I think many moderate Democrats, especially vulnerable ones in the House, are going to do everything and anything in their power to make sure that this liberal or progressive message doesn't become the mainstream, the mainstream Democratic agenda, and that these beliefs, they're going to try to make sure that these beliefs do not represent the overall message of the party. So tonight, if Nina Turner wins, it won't be this huge thing, but it will give Republicans another progressive to use to paint the Democratic Party. I'm not taking a stance here. It's common knowledge in politics that progressives are being used to define the Democratic Party by Republican candidates. You know, when they say things like socialist, or they say, they all stand for socialized medicine, or that they all want the Green New Deal. That's what Republicans' main messaging is. It was the case in the 2020 election that really caused Nancy Pelosi and Democrats to lose in the House. They didn't lose control, but they lost so many seats. And it was because of this narrative that Republicans were pushing, that Democrats are all socialists and that they all believe in this. It's a real thing. So if Nina Turner wins tonight, it could just be another way for Republicans to paint the Democratic Party as this party of liberal progressives. So in vulnerable Democratic districts, that is not going to be a good thing or welcomed. Now, if Ms. Brown wins, then, well, it's business as usual. A moderate will be going to Congress to represent the great people of the 11th District. So if a centrist wins here, Shontel Brown, Republicans can still say all these things. They can still paint liberal policies, the Democratic Party's current policies, as ultra-left, super liberal, because Ms. Brown is still going to vote with Joe Biden. And right now, Republicans are in that process of trying to paint Joe Biden's agenda as this full-on progressive leftist policy agenda. So if Shontel Brown wins, they may still paint it that way, but it won't be this full-on, liberal thing. And it will give moderates a greater standing in the party. It'll, revalidate their standing. Now, with both of these races, an outcome in either direction will not have cataclysmic impacts on the losing side. The fact of the matter is that both of these are strongholds for their respective political parties, and they're not switching nationwide policy anytime soon. At the primary level, the real impact will be more of a test of leadership. In the 15th district, it's going to be a test of Donald Trump's endorsement. And in the 11th district, it's going to be a test of what Democratic primaries across the country may hold for party progressives and party moderates. Because we're just a few months away from primary season again for the midterms. And whatever happens in this primary tonight, for Democrats anyway, is going to maybe have a nice, or may hint at what next year has in store for us. And same thing for the Republicans. Whatever happens tonight may show us what the future has in store for Republican primaries across the country. So that's where these races stand. If you want to learn more about these races, I realize that I'm probably going to be posting this episode very close to poll closing time. So if you do listen to this very soon after 8 p.m., go over to your preferred political cable news channel, or just look up Ohio 11th and Ohio 15th district results, and you'll get the results of who's winning or who's already won. And you can take a look at this analysis and maybe figure out where each party's headed. Now, of course, the victors in these primaries will not exactly determine the future of their parties, but again, it'll be an indicator of who's the stronger player. That does it for us today, guys. If you liked this episode and liked my analysis, then follow our Instagram and Twitter at The Sean S. Show for breaking news posts and show updates. Check out our new website, theshawnsshow.com, for all new episodes and the brand new political news blog. DM me on social media or email me if you have episode topic suggestions. And of course, share this episode and the others with your friends and family. Thank you so much for all your support, and I'll see you guys on Friday. Bye.